Well, this video you see next to me is causing quite the debate in Blue Springs. Strange lights in the night sky that some are calling UFOs. Neighbors say they've seen these lights for weeks now. KCTV5's Dave Jorden is there live. And Dave, you've seen them with your own eyes?
I did, Brad. I was out here for the past 2 nights looking at these strange lights in the sky. Neighbors, as you said they've been seeing them off and on for several weeks now. Now, nobody knows where these lights are coming from or what's bringing them out, but they're now the subject of an investigation by a UFO watch group.
Oh, that flickered pretty bright, too.
This is the topic of discussion tonight in a quiet suburban Blue Springs community. Multicolored orbs hovering in the sky. Robert Kover first noticed it 2 weeks ago and went to get a closer look. He was confronted by a neighbor who thought he was spying on women until he handed her his binoculars.
So I showed her the star that was in the sky just to get somebody else's perspective on it. And they had said that they'd never seen anything like it before.
It's like vibrating lights, red, green, and blue. And it's nothing I've ever seen before. And with their binoculars, we could see fairly well, but still it was, you know, off in the distance.
I can barely see some colors.
Teresa Price saw it as well, at least twice. The same night Becky and Robert did, and again when she was walking her dogs the following week. This time, things were even more bizarre.
It was up in the sky and just dropped, you know, how many feet I don't know, but it just dropped and then stayed stationary in that lower position.
Teresa had seen our recent news report on domestic drones that are now being used by local governments and law enforcement agencies. She thought that's what it was.
Kind of made me think about that. It's like, okay, is this some sort of a drone that's out there for why it's out at night? I don't know.
Robert called the KCTV5 investigative hotline and posted a sighting on a UFO spotter's website. The night of our interview, we spotted similar sightings. This is the enhanced video of what we saw. Robert was contacted by Margie Kay with the Missouri UFO Network. She decided to investigate for herself the following night. Kay interviewed everyone who claimed to have seen the UFOs and then set up telescopes to watch the sightings herself. Neighbors came out hoping to see similar activity that captivated the community.
Can you see it now?
As the sky darkened, one of them appeared, but Kay initially dismissed it.
I'm 90% certain that we're looking at Vega in this instance, and that there are, some other planets out right now.
But she came to a different conclusion after others started appearing.
Right there.
And after she put in a call to a colleague in another part of the state to take a closer look at what she thought was Vega. That person described it as pure white.
That's not what we're seeing. We're seeing some colors in this. I see red and green in this one, and in this one behind me, I see red, green, and blue. I don't think it's a planet. At this point, I don't know what it is. It's unidentified.
And so it goes. Now, we contacted Blue Springs Police. They tell us they have not heard any reports of such sightings. We also contacted the FAA. The FAA referred us to NORAD. NORAD told us that they did hear of a report about a similar sighting, but they're still working to determine whether that report came out of Missouri. We'll keep you posted. We're live tonight in Blue Springs. Dave Jorden, KCTV 5 News.
Margie, are you out there?
Sure am. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you for taking the time out of your day. I'm sure you're a very busy lady. So what is going on in Blue Springs, Missouri? And I don't know if you know this, Margie, but that interview you did for KCTV, it went national. You know that?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay. Because other people didn't know that.
Yeah, it's been a little bit crazy with all the additional reports I'm getting in from eastern Jackson County, and as well as some counties south of here. And then all of the reporters calling me from radio and TV stations all over. I haven't had much time to get my own work done.
Wow. So the fact that it hit the national news wire just made things go haywire, huh?
Yes, indeed. And I have a feeling it's just going to get worse because they did a follow-up report on that last night.
Oh, did they? Oh, I hope
Yeah.
I hope that goes national as well. If not, it'll probably be on YouTube within a couple of minutes of airing, I'm sure. So, what can you tell us about this, I guess, sighting there in Blue Springs, Missouri?
Well, this all started with Robert Kover's report, and he said that he had been watching some strange lights in the sky for some time, over a period now of, I guess, about 3 weeks. And then he said he got some neighbors and some friends involved, and they were also watching these things. And so I made an appointment to go see him. I thought this was compelling enough that I needed to go out to the site. And it just happened to be that KCTV5 then called me the next morning and asked if they could come out as well at the same time. So that's what happened. And so there's this entire neighborhood out in the streets with their binoculars and telescopes, and the TV crew, the cameraman taking video, and I was going around interviewing everybody, and while TV5 was interviewing me, I was interviewing him. It was just kind of crazy because it's unusual to get this many witnesses.
Right, right.
And then it's unusual to have a TV reporter tell me that he and his cameraman and camerawoman, actually the night before, also saw these objects and got footage of one of them. And he told me he had never seen anything like it, and he saw things darting about the sky that he couldn't explain, and now he was really curious about what was going on. So I knew we had a real event and that they were seeing something. But at first, when the lights appeared in the sky, we were there right at dusk. I actually thought that they were planets or stars. So I got out my star map and I looked and figured out that one was that I thought was Venus. Actually, Venus was down below the horizon, so it couldn't have been that. And then the other one I thought was Vega. And I just thought that maybe because of the atmosphere, light was refracting, and it was creating these pulsing colors of light. And on that object, it was green and white. The lights were going back and forth. And on the other object, the lights were red, white, and blue. But they didn't start doing anything spectacular until a little later on. I think I was out there for about 2 hours before this started happening. And I'd actually finished the interview with KCTV5, and they were wrapping it up.
Now, at that point, you had still pretty much determined this was a planet?
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Okay.
I thought that the two objects, I thought that one was a planet and one was a star.
Gotcha.
I thought one was Vega and one was possibly Venus, except I found out later that it couldn't have been. So at that point, that's what I thought they were. Then Robert Kover arrived, and he'd been there a few minutes, and then he said, "Hey, come look at this one through the binoculars." And I did, and it was very, very bright red, blue, and white lights, and they were flashing and pulsing. And through the binoculars, I mean, you could see it with the naked eye, but, you know, it's not something that you would just really notice as something unusual with the naked eye.
Right.
And you might just, you know, blow it off as being a planet. But with the binoculars, at that point, earlier in the evening, it wasn't like that. It was really spectacular. And I actually saw both of these objects as being not entirely spherical. There were some anomalies to it that, I mean, it was spherical in shape, but it was pressed in at the top on one side of each of these. And as I watched, I actually saw this sort of grid pattern over the front of one of the objects.
Wow.
And it looked more mechanical at that point. So we watched again for about 45 minutes, and then I did another interview, and I said, well, I've changed my mind now. Now it's unidentified. I'm not sure what it is. So I decided to move to a different location, and I left that neighborhood. I went up to Highway 7, where it was dark, pulled over on the side of the road, got out of the car, and both of those objects were gone. They were not in the sky anymore. And let me back up a little bit, because while I was at the site, when they started looking really unusual, I called our state director, Debbie Ziegelmeyer, in a town that is just west of St. Louis. Okay. She has a telescope. She's out in the country where it's dark, and I said, go outside and look at Vega and tell me what you see. And she says, well, it just looks normal. It's just white. It's not doing anything. And she looked at it through her high-powered binoculars. She didn't see any pulsing or any lights moving. And also, I thought these objects were pretty big for a star or a planet. They were larger in size. Mm-hmm. So then I called my daughter, who lives in West Independence, had her look with her binoculars, and she said, no, I don't see anything. There's nothing there. So at that point I was thinking, maybe these were objects that were closer, because you can't really tell distance. That's one of the first things we learn as investigators is you can't tell the distance of an object unless you can triangulate it. You don't really know its position.
Right.
So the next night, I got a crew of investigators together, which consisted of my husband, my 2 daughters, and 2 grandchildren.
Wow.
Because that's all I could muster up on short notice.
A real family affair there, huh?
Yeah. Well, they've been around me doing this for a long time, and so they watch the skies too, and
okay.
Help me out once in a while. So I thought, I need more people to see this in person. And our local investigators weren't available, but I did put the word out for them to watch the skies from their position if they could. So we go back out the next night at dusk, and here this one very bright object appears directly west this time instead of west-northwest. It appeared to be in a little bit different position. And so I observed this through high-powered binoculars for about an hour, and my youngest daughter did as well, and we saw red, white, and blue flashing lights, very bright, just like the night before. They were in sequence every 2 seconds. We were timing them. We both saw a more distinct grid pattern this time over the front of the object. It was like a diamond grid pattern. And then we both saw this round black dot down towards the right lower hand corner of this object. And after a while, it started to move, and I got my daughter and I said, "You need to see this." So we went back and forth using these binoculars, and through regular binoculars you couldn't see it. They have to be the high-powered. This dot started to move, and then I watched it as it and the rest of the structure actually made a 90-degree turn to the left, counterclockwise.
Oh my God.
So at that point, I realized we were looking at something that was mechanical.
Extremely strange, too.
Extremely strange. Yeah, very bizarre. I've never seen anything like it. And incidentally, I had to go to Clinton to do an investigation a few days ago. On last Friday night, I am taking this report, and they saw an object when they described it as a light with webbing over it. Ah. So this was real similar to my grid pattern that the 2 of us saw. So at this point, I don't know really what's going on. We've had so many reports. Most of them are from eastern Jackson County, but, Independence, Blue Springs, Lee Summit. Several from Grandview, Belton, and then going south, Peculiar, Clinton, and then north into Liberty, Lawson. And the odd thing about this is that, as you know, Kansas City has been a hotspot of UFO activity for the last year and a half. But the odd thing about this is that most of these reports are reporting several, similar objects.
Wow.
Most of the time we get reports that, there's a couple of triangles in there. But most of the time every report we get is different. And here we have 31 reports as of a few minutes ago. And in each of these reports, there are multiple witnesses. So there are over 100 witnesses.
And some of these are very good witnesses, so to say, trained observers, right?
Well, yes, me for one.
Right. But I mean,
trained observer, and we have one is a pilot. I've got 2 policemen. Wow. There are, and I would say most of them are credible. I don't think we've had any hoaxes. They're just, it runs the gamut as to who the people are. They're, from all different types of professions and education and experience. It's just crazy.
Now, when you saw this thing make this 90-degree turn, did it then disappear?
No, it remained there for a few more minutes and then gradually started to fade away. And as it's fading away, my second daughter arrived with her 12-inch telescope. And we aimed it at the object, and the computer on the telescope said that what we were looking at was Arcturus, which is a star. However, I believe that at that point, this thing had faded away and was actually just sitting in front of that star.
Gotcha.
Because the object, most of the time we see something like this, it either takes off at very fast speed or disappears, simply disappears. Very rarely do I hear of something fading away like this.
Now, when was the last reported sighting? After, I think the news event that went out on the news was it Thursday night or Friday morning or last week?
The news report was a Tuesday night last week that they did the interviews, and they aired it on Thursday or Friday, and then they did another one yesterday, and they aired it today, I believe, or maybe last night. Our last report that we received was, I'm looking at the index right now, last night.
Oh,
today.
Last night.
No, today. Mm-hmm. Midnight this morning in Blue Springs.
Wow.
And they, again, this one was another sphere.
Now, when I saw you on the news, of course, I got all excited, and I came down to my computer, and I wanted to see exactly where Blue Springs was located, and I got on Google Earth and started looking around. First thing I usually do is I look for, Air Force bases and things like that. Mm-hmm. Now, I did notice the ammunitions depot, or whatever they call it there, which is a very short, I think 4 or 5 miles northeast from Blue Springs. What's your thought on that?
Well, of course, that was on my radar, thinking about it. And in fact, the park where we ended up is about 1 mile west of Lake City Army Ammo Plant. And the object was directly west in that direction. Now, I can't say that it was hovering right over it because we haven't triangulated it yet. We need more reports in order to do that. If I can get some people that are further east that have seen the object and can give me a direction, we might be able to triangulate where the object actually was.
Now, you know, in my younger days, I lived in Seal Beach, California, and there's a naval installation there they built during World War II, and there's still all these bunkers out there. And when I got on Google Earth, it looked like to me that there's a couple of semicircle or arced rows of bunkers out there. Is that true, or am I seeing something?
The place is pretty big, and there are a lot of things there, including, oddly enough, 13,000 acres of underground caves right underneath it.
Wow. You know, I had a guy by the name of Jim Strait, do an interview once on his book, Weird Missouri. And
yeah.
I think he said Missouri is like the most cavernous state.
Yes, it is.
In the United States.
It certainly is. It makes you wonder how we can be standing on the ground all the time
well,
with all of these
yeah,
caves
exactly. But I mean, it's kind of weird, you know, because you guys are such a hot spot for UFOs and all these caves, and I don't know.
A lot of investigators have speculated that perhaps the UFOs are using these caves, you know, as bases. And that perhaps because Kansas City is right in the very center of the United States, highly populated area, maybe that's a hub for something. And you know, who knows? These could certainly be man-made objects.
Absolutely.
We do know the Whiteman Air Force Base is only 50 miles east of Kansas City, and they have the B-2s there, and they also have 12 new drones out there.
Now, they brought that up on as a kind of a part 2 to the interview that you did on KCTV about the drones. I don't see what I saw being a drone. I don't know, but what do you think? Do you think there's any connection to a drone or drones?
Well, it's something that we can't rule out. I think we need to just be aware of them, because from my understanding is that they can actually hover, and but the wingspan is about 90 feet, and they do have wings, so they don't look circular or spherical or like a disc. At least to my knowledge, they don't. Of course, you know, the Whiteman is not very forthcoming on descriptions because they're, you know, pretty much secret, and they're not going to give that information out. I did call Whiteman and NORAD and asked if they'd received any reports, and they said no, they hadn't. But the TV reporter, the first day he called, he got a response from NORAD indicating that they had received some reports. Then they changed their story.
Yeah, and they said they couldn't confirm that they came from Missouri.
Right.
What difference does it make? Just what did you get? Come on. Oh, geez.
Yeah.
So, what's next in regards to the Blue Springs sighting?
Well, the thing that I have really want to do is get this triangulated. So we've got reports from the south and the east of the object. So now I need from north and further. I mean west. So now I need east and north, if at all possible. Maybe out towards Buckner, maybe Grain Valley, Napoleon. You know, somewhere like that, or north of the river, Sibley, Missouri City. If we can get some people in those areas that can, you know, give an accurate description of where they've been seeing at least one of the objects. I mean, there's more than one, but I'm calling this main one because it seems to be appearing in the same place all the time.
And now also, these sightings had been going on for a couple of weeks before they even got reported to MUFON, correct?
That's right. That's right. They had been seeing them back into April before reporting, and then the odd thing is that I believe this has been occurring for at least a month, because, well, at least during the whole month of May and then back, because the newest reports I get in, people are saying that they've been watching them for, 2-week period of time after they noticed it and didn't know how long it had been there before that.
Wow. And then as far as this follow-up report that KCTV did, what did they talk about? Or did you get to see it
well,
yet? Or?
Yeah, I've seen it. They basically just did a follow-up saying that the reports continue to come in and that it's an ongoing investigation.
Oh, okay.
And that some of the things that have been ruled out, and everything normal has been ruled out: sky lanterns, satellites, helicopters, planes, the typical. That's all been ruled out.
Well, at least you have a reporter there that actually saw this sighting as well. So maybe he'll continue to report on it better than if he hadn't seen it.
I think so. The reporters I've talked to have been genuinely interested and want to be notified of follow-up. So I think if we do come up with anything, as in, if we can get it triangulated to find the location, then that will maybe perhaps lead us to a landing site, because some people saw one of the objects go down to the ground at one point, or down behind trees, and assume it went to the ground. We don't know, and then back up. Mm-hmm. So if this is indeed the case, perhaps we can get a landing site as long as it's not on some land that's restricted.
Right, right. It just concerns me so much that they have that Army ammunition place there. It's just such a coincidence.
Well, years ago, I know these reports that I believe that every single site in the United States where they had missiles was visited by UFOs at one time or another, and actually shut down.
Yes.
By these unknown objects. They saw the objects, the whole place was shut down, the missiles were, disabled, and we had no defense for some time. Mm-hmm. So somebody was giving us a message there. And so that makes me wonder, what is happening at Lake City? They make small arms there. I don't know everything that they make there.
Exactly.
I have a friend who works there, and he's told me a little bit about what he makes. And, they're, pretty dangerous weapons. But would that be of interest to, say, an extraterrestrial race or whatever? I mean, they could be interdimensional beings,
yep.
Or possibly another country with technology so great that they can hover wherever they want to. I do know we saw jets, too. We've seen jets flying around these things. I've heard of them circling. I saw jets going back and forth, quite a few.
These would be like F-16 type?
I believe that on the 23rd that I witnessed a couple of F-16s. Wow. They were not together, which is unusual, because my understanding is they fly together, but I don't know what their entire flight plan was. Mm-hmm. And I saw two of them go by our location and then near this object. However, they kept going in a straight line. They didn't circle it or anything like that. But other people have reported circling.
Wow. Well, listen, if people want more information or they want to continue following this story, are you and Missouri MUFON keeping your website updated on this?
Absolutely. In fact, I just wrote another press release today I'm going to put up. It is MissouriMUFON.org.
Okay.
And my contact information is there. And, of course, we always encourage people to file their reports at MUFON.com. So that's the International MUFON site, and then the cases are assigned to the investigators from there.
Gotcha. Well, we definitely will want to keep a thumb on this and keep checking back on the pulse and see if this thing continues. I wanted to bring up before you have to go. You actually publish your own. I take it, is it a UFO or magazine, or does it span all sorts of different types of things? Or
and anything that's unexplained. It's called UNX News Magazine.
UNX News Magazine. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Anything unexplained. We talk about UFOs, paranormal, ghosts, conspiracy theories. All of that. And I do the same on my radio show, the same name, and that's on margiekay.com, MARGIEKAY.com. I have all of that information and links to the show and the magazine there.
Okay. Now, the radio show, is that on a regular basis, or?
Yes, every Friday night at 7 p.m. Central Time for 2 hours. And I usually have 2 guests on during the evening and give an update on current events. And, of course, I'm going to be giving an update on what's going on right now in Kansas City this Friday.
Okay. I'll be listening, because I tell you, this anytime a sighting makes it all the way to the national newswire, that's great. I just, I bet you're just thrilled.
Yeah, well, I'm just glad that the media is taking this seriously.
Exactly.
And what that does, it kind of encourages people to go ahead and file a report where they might not have been thinking about it, or they might not even know where to file a report.
Right.
So this way we can actually get investigators in the field and try to, solve this puzzle that we're all working on.
And what a puzzle it is. It just, the pieces just keep coming, and I don't know. Do you think we'll ever find out the 100%
I think we will. I think we will eventually.
Yep.
As busy as the skies have been lately, and the way the media and the TV shows and movies have been handling the topic, it's got a much more serious tone to it than it used to.
And much more acceptable to talk about.
Oh, absolutely. And I think everybody in the world knows that there is something going on here, and that we want to get to the bottom of it.
Yep, that's all we want to do. Absolutely. Well, listen, Margie, I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your day to speak with us. Really, really appreciate it. For those viewers out there, check out Margie's magazine, UN-X News Magazine, and also her UNX News radio program, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time. Correct?
That is right. Thanks so much, Rick.
Okay. Well, listen, Margie, best of luck to you on this case. I hope more gets revealed, and we'll be listening Friday night on your radio show to see if anything has come up new.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Margie. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, it's a story that inundated our newsroom with calls and emails, those strange lights over Blue Springs. Tonight, some new information about what some are calling UFOs. KCTV5's Dave Jorden is live tonight in Blue Springs. Hey, Dave.
Hey there, Brad. We still don't know what these things are, but we do know that more people are seeing them. In fact, they're still getting calls as we speak, and we have gotten a lot of calls at KCTV5 and emails as well from eyewitnesses.
What we're seeing tonight.
Blue Springs residents aren't the only ones scratching their heads in disbelief over these frequent nocturnal visitors. The Missouri UFO Network has been inundated with reports since our story aired last week.
I literally can't get any work done because of the amount of correspondence. There's a lot of interest in it from people who have not seen anything, but I've received a lot of calls from people who have seen things.
These are just some of the emails KCTV5 received as well after our initial story was posted online. The May 24th UFO sighting is the same object orb seen here in New Hampshire back in March. Another email reads, I would like to report that the same case was noticed also in Croatia. And closer to home, I live in Liberty and I saw the same thing a few years ago. I figured it was just a planet. After Kay first spotted the UFOs last week, she made 3 visits to this park just a mile away from the Blue Springs neighborhood where they first made an appearance.
And on 2 of those nights, the object appeared, and we were able to look at it through high-powered binoculars.
Kay asked to see our enhanced video, which confirmed what she had already suspected.
See how they pulse back and forth? That's consistent with what we've seen on other nights. No, I'm a little bit scared myself. I don't know what it is.
Now, last week we called the FAA about this, and they referred us to NORAD, and we were told that they did get some calls on some strange sightings. But when I called them back today, they said they have no record of where those calls came from or what the sightings are, Brad and Karen. So tonight, the mystery continues.
Well, welcome back, everyone. That was just a great conversation we had with Margie Kay from Missouri MUFON. And now we're going to move on to our next guests, who are also eyewitnesses to this sighting in Blue Springs, Missouri. On the phone right now, we have Robert Kover and Jorden Thatcher. Hi, guys. Are you out there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right.
Oh, yeah, we're here.
Good. I'm glad you guys were able to take some time out to talk with us tonight. We really appreciate it. Now,
yeah,
Robert,
no problem, dude.
Robert, you had mentioned that you wanted to have Jorden join you tonight because I guess, was Jorden actually saw this thing before you did, or how does Jorden and you come together on this sighting?
Well, when I first originally spotted this, I called Jorden to get his perspective on it, and he so happened to be flying in, or to be driving in to Kansas City at that time, and he was going to be there that night, so I was able to show him in person what I was seeing.
And Jorden, when Robert called you and said what he was seeing, what did you think?
I didn't know what to think. I mean, you know, he showed me a picture from his phone. It just looked like a starry sky, and I was kind of like, well, you know, this could be, you know, completely fake and BS, or, you know, this could be real, and I won't actually know until I see it myself.
Now, Jorden, are you into ufology prior to all this happening, or was this just something kind of out of the blue that Robert brought up to you?
Oh yeah, I've been. I haven't say like I'm a hardcore UFO researcher, but you know, I have, you know, seen multiple reports. I've listened to talks by, you know, famous people who have made, like, you know, amazing and impressive speeches on this subject. But just because of what Robbie showed me, I didn't think that was going to be a UFO at the time.
Gotcha. So Robert, you get a hold of Jorden. He's flying in. What happens next?
Well, he gets into town, so we wait for a while to meet up because it has to be dark in order to see these objects. And we meet up later on that night, about, I'd say 9:30. And we go out walking around, and I brought my binoculars so I could show him this. And I first showed it to him up in the northern sky, and he thought it was just a star. So I showed it to him with my binoculars, and it changed his whole perspective on what that was.
Now, tell us about the difference between seeing this with the naked eye and what you were able to see with the binoculars?
Well, with the naked eye, you could see the flashing of different colors if you were paying very close attention. But it kind of looked at first like it was a star that was really bright that was flickering, and like a flicker that was kind of normal, but at the same time it didn't look as if it were a star. And when you look at it through the binoculars, you got an enhanced view of the different colors coming off of it. It was orange, red, green, and blue, and sometimes purple. It got into some pretty crazy colors.
Wow. Yeah, all sorts of colors, like all over the color spectrum.
And were they strobing, or were they slowly like morphing from color to color, or how were they?
I'd like to say it was more of a
strobing,
vibrant, pulsating light.
Yeah, it was more like a strobe. So it was like a kind of like a flicker, and then it would like change to some different color.
Wow. So now, when was this exactly that you guys first got together and saw it together?
I think that was I think it was May the 11th, right?
Yes, it was May the 11th.
Yeah.
And then, so you see this thing, you know you're not crazy because the other person's seeing it as well. What do you do next?
Well, next I tried to show a couple of different people in the neighborhood to get their perspective on it, and a couple of them, of course, pushed me away, and they were like, "Oh, well, it's nothing," or that's just a bunch of crazy kids trying to do something.
Yeah.
And then I showed it to a woman who was mentioned in the interview, Becky Neely, and she saw it, and she was just blown away by it.
Ah, I see. So now, Jorden, do you live close by Robert?
Well, I do when I'm back at home. I'm currently studying photography out in Chicago right now, and that's where I'm at right now. But yes, when I'm like back home for like summer, I do live very close by.
Now,
about like a half block away.
Okay. Now you're saying you study photography. Were you able to snap any fantastic shots of this thing with your super telephoto lens or anything?
Unfortunately, I didn't have my super telephoto lens because those things are delicate, and I was traveling back home on the bus actually, and
Oh wow.
I can't risk it,
I understand. They're not cheap. They're not cheap items, are they?
No.
I bet you wish you had it though.
Oh, definitely.
So May 11th comes and goes. Now we're talking what? The news report that came out was like May 24th or something like that, or May 23rd. Mm-hmm. So what happened between May 11th and May 23rd or whatever?
We saw them every night.
We saw them every night for a long time, unless there was cloud coverage or there was a rainy, stormy night. We didn't see them. And actually one night we experienced one of the craziest ones I can say that I've ever seen, and this was one that came down from the sky, and it had gone to a lower elevation and then kept going down to a lower elevation until we could not see it anymore.
So this thing actually, when you first saw it, was in its normal elevation, and then started going down, and actually made it all the way down to what you assume was ground level?
Well, it was like past the tree line.
Wow.
But yeah.
It was definitely either very, very low, hovering above ground, or it had made touchdown.
And then how long did it stay on at that low level and what happened shortly after that? I know because you told me, but tell the viewers what happened.
Well, after Jorden had gone home that night, I had watched this thing for maybe possibly about an hour to 2 hours, and I'd just been tracking it because I was wondering what had happened to it. And that night, it shot back up into the sky like a flare of light, right back up into the sky, and then it assumed its normal position was before we had seen it going down from elevation.
And when you and I first talked about this, Robert, we both said, or you said that it reminded you of the video that was out late last year at the, what is it called, the Church of the Rock or the Temple of the Rock?
At the Temple of the Rock in Jerusalem, with the sighting where the orb had made it all the way down to the temple, and about a few seconds later had shot back up straight into the sky and disappeared.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people have seen that video, and that's basically what this thing that you saw in Missouri do, right?
Yes.
Wow. Very strange. Very strange. So, Jorden, did you talk to other people about this sighting? And if so, what kind of feedback or response did you get?
Well, actually, Robbie asked me to call one of the local news stations. And I think that's how this whole entire story originally got attention, when I called up a local news station.
And that's KCTV?
Yeah, KCTV5.
Yes, it's KCTV5.
What was your experience like talking to them about this?
Well, he didn't know what to think of it at first. The guy who contacted me from KCTV5, he didn't know what to think of it because he got multiple reports of like this UFO and that UFO, and then they go out to investigate, and it's just some completely crazy person. I mean, he's saying that he keeps on getting that, but with the strange circumstances of our UFO, and that Robbie had called in also later on that night, that he was actually starting to believe it a little bit, and was trying to get an investigative crew out there.
And now, of course they eventually did come out there, but it took them a week or so, or what?
Well,
it took them.
The reason why it took them so long was because until actually Becky Neely had called in to verify what we had seen, they weren't going to originally come out because the news station itself didn't totally believe us. They thought maybe we were a couple teenagers that were.
Yeah.
Well, what Dave actually said to me was, he was like, "Is there any chance that you were smoking something or drinking something when you saw this?" And I was off my bonkers at first.
Man. So finally, Becky Neely calls in, and she's slightly older than you are. Probably sounds a little bit more mature, maybe. And so he finally says, "Okay, I'll come out and do the story," huh?
Yes, but we expected that it was going to be this branch off of the investigation team, but instead of the investigation team coming out, the actual news station came out.
Oh.
Which blew me away, and I was like, well, I didn't think it was going to get this big this fast.
Well,
and then that news station guy actually saw it for himself.
Yeah, and that makes all the difference. I'm sure now that he has seen this with his own eyes, he's going to follow this story, and because I don't think it's over yet. As long as it keeps coming back. Now, I understand that. I guess late last week, they went away, right? Nothing was seen.
nothing was seen for about 3 or 4 days, and then after about 3 or 4 days, according to actually a video that I saw yesterday on KCTV5 that was also presented by the same reporter that interviewed me, they said that Margie K had been getting all of these emails, these crazy emails, actually from really close to home and very, very far away from home.
Mm-hmm.
There was somebody who had said that that the same sighting had been seen about a year ago in Croatia, and that somebody before that had called in and said about a year ago they saw it in Liberty, Missouri. So, I mean, that's very, very close to home.
Yeah, in fact, Margie said tonight that she's received 31 formal reports on this sighting so far. Just, you know, that's quite a bit for one sighting. And what they're trying to do now, I guess, is if they can get a few more reports from different areas, they'll be able to triangulate and get a better feel of where this thing was actually hovering over. We talked about, you know, that ammunitions plant, which is just north of you guys, 6 miles, I think.
Which is Lake City.
Yeah, Lake City.
Yep.
And, you know, that's just too much of a coincidence for me, you know, because these UFOs are often seen over those types of installations. So it may just be a coincidence, but I don't know. It's going to be strange to find out.
Yes, because if I remember correctly, one of the best, actually, even quoted on a YouTube video for the best evidence UFOs in 2012, was a incident that happened in, I can't remember where it happened at, but it was a orange orb that was hovering over a nuclear facility that had actually shut down the nuclear missiles.
Oh, yeah. Back in the 60s, that happened all the time. So they were taking the missiles offline, and they just had a big press conference on that last year, I believe. And, you know, I can't believe it hasn't gotten more publicity, but maybe it's something the government doesn't want people to talk about. I don't know. Very strange. So back to this night when the crew, the news crew came out, did they talk to you guys directly, or did they mostly talk with Margie, or how did that go?
Well, unfortunately,
Go ahead, Jorden.
Oh, yeah. Well, unfortunately, I wasn't actually able to be there. I had to get back on a train to Chicago the day before they came out, kind of on surprise.
So you missed it. So Robert,
I did.
What happened when they came out?
Well, when they came out, the first place they actually stopped was my house, and they had pulled up with their van. And Dave came out, and he shook my hand, and he started talking to me about what I had seen. And I tried to explain it to him. And they had gotten there very early, like 7:30ish. And I told him that we would have to wait probably a little bit before we could see these objects. And I felt like he was getting a little antsy maybe, and like didn't want to stay as long as he did. So I told him, hey, well, let's walk down to Becky Neely's house, and I'll introduce you to Becky Neely, the one who had also called, and you can talk to her about what she saw also, and get the whole perspective of what's going on. And so we walk down there, and he talks to her, and we set up the interviews, and they posted up the cameras, and they actually caught on film, which they didn't put on the news, surprisingly, but they focused the camera, and you could see the orb moving in the sky.
Wow.
And that was about 9:15ish to 9:30ish.
Now when you say the orb moved, or the object moved, did it move horizontally or vertically or what?
It actually went in circles. She had the lady that had the camera put it on a tripod, and she zoomed it in as far as she could get a clear picture of it, and she had this X mark in the middle of the camera to tell her where the focus was. And the orb stayed in one spot for a couple seconds, and then she walked away from the camera so that she made sure that she wasn't touching it. And we watched the screen, and the orb went around the X, back to the center, actually made it all the way into the X, and then up around, back up to where it was originally.
Now, what did the camera lady say about this? Was she shocked?
She said at first when she came down here, she didn't believe a single thing that we were saying. But after she changed her mind.
She's a believer now, huh?
Well, she would admit that, but she said that it was definitely something she couldn't explain.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's funny how that happens. You know, all it takes is one time. So, what are your guys' personal thoughts on this? Everybody has their own thoughts and theories. Jorden, let's go to you first. What's your personal thought on this? What do you think it's about? What do you think it is?
I mean, well, first of all, I don't know what it is. I mean, I haven't gotten like a close-up picture of it before. I mean, like, it could be, something not from this planet or something military. It could. I don't know what it is, but I think that's definitely made with some technology that we don't currently have public access to.
Now, what about the drone theory that the newscast kind of stuck in there at the end? You think it could possibly be a drone? I
don't think so.
Yeah, I don't either.
I just don't think so.
Drones don't. I just don't think drones. The whole thing about drones is they're supposed to be secretive. Why would they sit up there in the same spot with all these different colored lights flashing?
Yeah, flashlights. Yeah, that's completely. That's nonsense.
So at this time, you're keeping an open mind, though, and you're going to keep up on the story.
Oh, definitely.
Good. Robert, how about you? What's your personal feelings on this?
Well, I would have to say my personal feelings on this sighting, I don't know what the object is. I know that it is a multicolored orb, and that's just about all that I can say that I know it is for a fact. I would not be surprised if it was military, but I do not believe that it's a drone.
Now, didn't you say at one time there was multiple objects up there in the sky?
My biggest range that I've seen so far is I've seen 9 of them close together.
Yeah, I've seen like 4 of them in the sky at once.
Now, when you see them like that, do they eventually go back into one object, or do some of them just kind of fade away, or what happens?
Well, actually, some of them definitely disappear. Jorden and I, one night, I think it was actually the second night, I showed these objects to him.
Yeah.
We were staring at the one that we saw in the was that the northern sky?
Mm-hmm. Like a northeastern.
And we were staring at this object, and looking at it through the binoculars, and in front of both of our eyes, this object disappeared. It just completely disappeared. And that is when the whole star theory and everything went out of the water.
Yeah, definitely.
So it wasn't like clouds slowly coming by and just slowly blacking it out. It just blacked out like that.
Yeah, like in a split second.
Like somebody turned a light bulb off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that, like what I thought about it was maybe some sort of cloaking device. That's what it even looked like. Like it just was gone so fast. Like if you would have blinked, you would have missed it.
So now, if people are watching this video and they live near Blue Springs, which is what, about 15 miles east of Kansas City, Missouri?
Yeah, about 15
something like that.
miles.
Okay. If there's people watching this and they live in that area, how can they try to see this object? What is the best time to see it if it's up there, and in what direction should they be looking?
I would say the best time for them to look at this object would be around the 9:15 to 10:30 would be the best viewing time for this object, but they're out all night.
Okay. And they want to make sure it's a clear night, though. Right.
Yes, it's got to be a clear night. It's dark.
Okay.
And like for the part of the sky to be watching at, we've seen them mostly from like the southwest part of the sky to the northeastern part of the sky. Something kind of like that.
Really?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Southwest to the northeast.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that is a large area. I did not know that it was being seen in such a wide area.
Yeah, they like those times that we were talking about where we'd see like multiples of these objects in the sky. Like, you know, one time like one would be in the southwest part of the sky, one would be in the northeast part of the sky, and there'd be like a couple ones like in between.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
All at the same altitude, or
some of them
different
lower,
altitudes.
Some of them higher.
Yeah.
Wow. And occasionally I'll see some of them all bunched up together. Like when I saw 9 of them together at one night, I questioned it, and I thought maybe it was a constellation, and maybe I was just being way too skeptic of what I was seeing. So I went to get my binoculars to see if it was the same thing that I had seen the night before, and by God, it was. They were all lighting up, and they were all changing different colors, and some of them would fade out and then come back in different parts of the sky.
So now that you've seen these things on so many occasions, has it started to be old news to you, or are you still checking them out every night to see if they're up there?
I personally check them out every night to see if they're up there because it's just something that interests me.
Mm-hmm.
And one night, I'm pretty sure it was the 25th. I saw something that I cannot explain. Like I can explain it, but I can't comprehend it that well. And
what is that?
Well, I woke up about 4:30 a.m. and I was startled. Like for some reason, my body woke me up, and I just felt like something was watching me. So I opened up my window, which I have covered by a sheet. So I opened it up and I looked out at my window, and there's one of these multicolored orbs that is very, very bright, and it's flaring and strobing, and it's changing all sorts of colors, and I can see the red with my naked eye. It's going red completely, and then it actually shot out 2 white orbs that were traveling very fast, and those orbs themselves changed into a red color, into that red color that the orb was flaring. And then they shot back around like a full 360 degrees around back to that orb, and then that orb disappeared after 7 seconds.
Amazing.
And I could not sleep for the rest of the night. I couldn't. I stayed the rest of the night.
Oh, that is just trippy. Now, one thing also I heard, and I don't know if you guys heard about this, but supposedly somebody reported that they owned a brand new car, and when this thing was over them, they could not start the car. some type of orb was over it. They couldn't start the car.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
Yeah,
actually, I have a friend, Curtis, who has a Dodge Avenger. It's not brand new, but it's fairly new. It's about 2 or 3 years old. And he was starting the car one night after I showed him these orbs. And there was one directly above us. And it was flaring pretty bright and flashing all these colors. And his car would start. But the radio, air conditioning, and every electronical part in that car besides the starter would not start.
Would not
and
work.
after he had, it just would not work. And then after he drove off down the road, he hit Pink Hill Road, which is right past our subdivision, and traveled down Pink Hill Road for 5 minutes, and everything came on at once.
That is
he had
weird.
been really strapped to the car.
didn't he get some like static through the radio too?
Yes, he had white noise, or what I would consider a lot of static coming through the radio.
Some type of electronic pulse or something.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
I tell you,
yeah.
you guys, you know, Missouri has had a lot of reports over the last year or so. I'm not sure why so many sightings there near you, but man, I wish I could actually get to see some of this myself.
Well, actually, my favorite sighting that has been seen in Missouri that I've read up on, and I guess nobody actually knows what it was, but it's been filmed twice and filmed very well. And it was the sighting over 291 in Lee Summit of the giant. It's what the lady said in the video. She compared it to the Close Encounters of the Third Kind vehicle. It was huge, and it went over 291, and it was a very low altitude, and you could see every light on it.
Like a mothership.
Every light. Like a huge mothership. And somebody actually across town was videotaping it the same time she was. So they have two very good videos of this. One, this lady is driving with her kids after they were going trick-or-treating on October 31st and caught this video, which I believe actually October was the best month for the most UFO sightings in Blue Spring or in Missouri.
Right.
Not just Blue Springs and Lee Summit, but in Missouri.
Correct.
And this sighting itself is I have to say the most remarkable one that I've heard of in Missouri lately.
Wow. Well, listen, guys, you guys, hopefully you feel lucky because you definitely are being able to have had a chance to see these sightings. So I tell you, we're getting down to the end of the show here. I just want to say once again, thanks very much for talking with us. I know that you know, sometimes people have these experiences, these sightings. They don't want to talk publicly about them. So both to you and Jorden, appreciate it very much.
Well, you are very welcome.
So,
yeah, thanks for having us on your show. It was great.
No problem, Jorden. Now, you're going to be heading back to Chicago. So hopefully you're not going to miss anything. I guess you'll stay in touch with Robert, and he'll keep you updated, huh?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
All right, good. Well, listen, Robert, let's stay in touch, and if you get any more sightings, you know, at least shoot me an email. Let me know.
I will definitely do that.
All right. Okay, guys. Hey, listen, thanks very much again, and we'll be talking to you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, take it easy, guys.
Hey.
See you, Jorden.
You too, man.
Bye-bye.
Peace.
Bye.
Well, there you have it. Two eyewitnesses, not only to this last sighting last week, but over the past several weeks, they've been seeing these objects up there. So again, if you live out there in the Kansas City area, Lee Summit, Blue Springs, get out there around 10 o'clock, look up northeast to the southwest area, and maybe you'll be able to see one of these as well. From what I understand, it helps to have binoculars, but not absolutely necessary. All right, well, we're at the end of the show. We're really gone past our time frame. So I just want to thank everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time on Topic UFO. Good night. Day. I'm sure you're a very busy lady. So what is going on in Blue Springs, Missouri? And I don't know if you know this, Margie, but that interview you did for KCTV, it went national. You know that?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay. Because other people didn't know that.
Yeah, it's been a little bit crazy with all the additional reports I'm getting in from eastern Jackson County, and as well as some counties south of here, and then all of the reporters calling me from radio and TV stations all over. I haven't had much time to get my own work done.
Wow. So the fact that it hit the national news wire just made things go haywire, huh?
Yes, indeed, and I have a feeling it's just going to get worse because they did a follow-up report on that last night.
Oh, did they? Oh, I hope that goes national as well. If not, it'll probably be on YouTube within a couple of minutes of airing, I'm sure. So, what can you tell us about this, I guess, sighting there in Blue Springs, Missouri?
Well, this all started with Robert Kover's report, and he said that he had been watching some strange lights in the sky for some time, over a period now of, I guess, about 3 weeks. And then he said he got some neighbors and some friends involved, and they were also watching these things. And so I made an appointment to go see him. I thought this was compelling enough that I needed to go out to the site. And it just happened to be that KCTV5 then called me the next morning and asked if they could come out as well at the same time. So that's what happened.
Dogs the following week. This time, things were even more bizarre.
It was up in the sky and just dropped, you know, how many feet I don't know, but it just dropped and then stayed stationary in that lower position.
Teresa had seen our recent news report on domestic drones that are now being used by local governments and law enforcement agencies. She thought that's what it was.
Kind of made me think about that. It's like, okay, is this some sort of a drone that's out there for why it's out at night? I don't know.
Robert called the KCTV5 investigator investigative hotline and posted a sighting on a UFO spotter's website. The night of our interview, we spotted similar sightings. This is the enhanced video of what we saw. Robert was contacted by Margie Kay with the Missouri UFO Network. She decided to investigate for herself the following night. Kay interviewed everyone who claimed to have seen the UFOs and then set up telescopes to watch the sightings herself. Neighbors came out hoping to see similar activity that captivated the community.
Can you see it now?
As the sky darkened, one of them appeared, but Kay initially dismissed it.
I'm 90% certain that we're looking at Vega in this instance, and that there are, some other planets out right now.
But she came to a different conclusion after others started appearing.
Right there.
And after she put in a call to a colleague in another part of the state to take a closer look at what she thought was Vega. That person described it as pure white.
That's not what we're seeing. We're seeing some colors in this. I see red and green in this one, and in this one behind me, I see red, green, and blue. I don't think it's a planet. At this point, I don't know what it is. It's unidentified.
And so it goes. Now, we contacted Blue Springs Police. They tell us they have not heard any reports of such sightings. We also contacted the FAA. The FAA referred us to NORAD. NORAD told us that they did hear of a report about a similar sighting, but they're still working to determine whether that report came out of Missouri. We'll keep you posted. We're live tonight in Blue Springs. Dave Jorden, KCTV 5 News.
Margie, are you out there?
Sure am. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you for taking the time out of your... You had still pretty much determined this was a planet?
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
Okay.
I thought that the two objects, I thought that one was a planet and one was a star.
Gotcha.
I thought one was Vega and one was possibly Venus, except I found out later that it couldn't have been. So at that point, that's what I thought they were. Then Robert Kover arrived, and he'd been there a few minutes. And then he said, hey, come look at this one through the binoculars. And I did, and it was very, very bright red, blue, and white lights. And they were flashing and pulsing. And through the binoculars, I mean, you could see it with the naked eye, but, it's not something that you would just really notice as something unusual with the naked eye.
Right.
And you might just, blow it off as being a planet. But with the binoculars... at that point, earlier in the evening, it wasn't like that. It was really spectacular. And I actually saw both of these objects as being not entirely spherical. There were some anomalies to it that, it was spherical in shape, but it was pressed in at the top on one side of each of these. And as I watched, I actually saw this sort of grid pattern over the front of one of the objects.
Wow.
And it looked more mechanical at that point. So we watched again for about 45 minutes, and then I did another interview, and I said, well, I've changed my mind now. Now it's unidentified. I'm not sure what it is. So I decided to move to a different location, and I left that neighborhood. I went up to Highway 7, where it was dark, pulled over on the side of the road, got out of the car, and both of those objects were gone. They were not in the sky anymore. And let me back up a little bit, because so there's this entire neighborhood out in the streets with their binoculars and telescopes, and the TV crew, the cameraman taking video, and I was going around interviewing everybody, and while TV5 was interviewing me, I was interviewing him. It was just kind of crazy because it's unusual to get this many witnesses.
Right.
And then it's unusual to have a TV reporter tell me that he and his cameraman and camera woman, actually the night before, also saw these objects and got footage of one of them. And he told me he had never seen anything like it, and he saw things darting about the sky that he couldn't explain, and now he was really curious about what was going on. So I knew we had a real event and that they were seeing something. But at first, when the lights appeared in the sky, we were there right at dusk. I actually thought that they were planets or stars. So I got out my star map and I looked and figured out that one was that I thought was Venus. Actually, Venus was down below the horizon, so it couldn't have been that. And then the other one I thought was Vega. And I just thought that maybe because of the atmosphere, light was refracting, and it was creating these pulsing colors of light. And on that object, it was green and white. The lights were going back and forth. And on the other object, the lights were red, white, and blue. But they didn't start doing anything spectacular until a little later on. I think I was out there for about 2 hours before this started happening. And I'd actually finished the interview with KCTV5, and they were wrapping it up.
Now, at that point...
Well, this video you see next to me is causing quite the debate in Blue Springs. Strange lights in the night sky that some are calling UFOs. Neighbors say they've seen these lights for weeks now. KCTV5's Dave Jorden is there live. And Dave, you've seen them with your own eyes?
I did, Brad. I was out here for the past 2 nights looking at these strange lights in the sky. Neighbors, as you said they've been seeing them off and on for several weeks now. Now, nobody knows where these lights are coming from or what's bringing them out, but they're now the subject of an investigation by a UFO watch group.
Oh, that flickered pretty bright, too.
This is the topic of discussion tonight in a quiet suburban Blue Springs community, multicolored orbs hovering in the sky. Robert Kover first noticed it 2 weeks ago and went to get a closer look. He was confronted by a neighbor who thought he was spying on women until he handed her his binoculars.
So I showed her the star that was in the sky just to get somebody else's perspective on it. And they had said that they'd never seen anything like it before.
It's like vibrating lights, red, green, and blue. And it's nothing I've ever seen before. And with their binoculars, we could see fairly well, but still it was, you know, off in the distance.
I can barely see some colors.
Teresa Price saw it as well, at least twice. The same night Becky and Robert did, and again when she was walking her